Chapter 2. Our History.
Bullying, trying to make me look small. You say it is my fault. Maybe it is. What you think, what it really is. Your inability to live up to my potential. Your envy, seeing me, exploring mine.
During the struggling years, he tried many things. When he was younger, he turned to alcohol or drugs. As he got older, he turned to meditation or working out to reduce or control his senses, which constantly feed him with an abundance of information. He needed to feel calm, even if it was just for a moment. When he spent time with her, he felt a soothing feeling. He felt safe. The voices in his head made sense. Since their rainy walk leaving the restaurant, the moon had passed through its lunar phases. As life went on, they longed for the brisk air and night sky that had captured them that night. One clear night, they playfully decided to spend it stargazing in a meadow. When he lay his head on her chest, he felt drawn to her in a way that he couldn't get himself to move. With her, he could perceive the harmonic place which he previously only visited in his mind. As he lay there, he thought about how much she loved to read and study, so curious about the essence of things. It was seldom dull to talk to her. She spoke about the world, wondering about everything from the beginning of time, the development of life, the meaning of life, and what will come at the end of time. It had a calming effect on him. To have his existence understood in the context of the human race and its progress made him feel less important. Some might have thought it would not be a good thing to feel less important. For him, it was exhausting to constantly feel needed by everyone, compounded by frustration at the seeming inability of many to think and make reasonable decisions for themselves. But with her, it all became understandable. She could talk for hours on end, and he felt enraptured by her beauty as she did. As they spoke, he felt himself drawn into the center of the galaxy, with everything else falling away. Even though they existed in the supermassive black hole, they had no idea what lay beyond it. Time had stopped, and they were entirely focused on each other's minds. It was an incomparable experience to share so much information with someone who listened, understood, and was willing to explore. He finally felt heard for who he was and could also hear himself better. Even his deepest feelings, kept hidden since childhood, were revealed. However, some thoughts remained too shameful or guilty to share. They lay there silently, with the sky above them and gravity holding their bodies in place. Their minds were free to wander wherever they wanted. His relationship with her didn't feel real, not in a way that suggested any bad intentions. It just didn't feel like it could be genuine. The way she acted seemed unrealistic, like a person he had longed for in his imagination. When they spent time together, she didn't ask anything else from him. He leaned towards her and kissed her to quiet his thoughts for a moment, which had a stimulating effect. As he sat up in the grass, she rested her head on his knee, tucking herself in with a wool blanket. He felt secure in her presence, but somewhere inside a voice told him not to believe it. It was all because of his crush, and he couldn't see clearly. Still, there was so much he didn't know about her. He couldn't figure her out in the same way he could with most people, yet he felt no need to analyze her because she seemed genuine. He had always been good at reading people, even when he didn't know that he knew everyone's desires. Young and naive, he thought they meant what they said, even when their bodies said otherwise. When he was young, this could often get him into trouble. He soon learned that people didn't want to know. They didn't want to know what they desired or why they acted as they did. He thought the whole society was walking around in a bubble. Everyone was so afraid of reality. They could not handle it, so they were desperate to believe their lies. People lie all the time to each other, often because they care for each other. They do not want the other person to feel bad. They do not tell you how they feel because they want to be polite, not forcing you out of your emotional balance. He could never force himself to feel something he didn't, no matter how hard he tried. And for this he was often treated differently, ostracized for not behaving as expected. As a child, he didn't realize that this was going to be a recurring theme in his life. Nobody ever asked him how he felt. They only told him. People told me that I'm hard to deal with. Well, yeah, I get them because that is how I felt. about everyone, he thought to himself. All was left for him to figure out by himself, with his voice speaking at a higher register, his heart pounding fast, his eyes always on the watch, frightened. He talked fast, even though he knew nobody was listening, but sometimes things just had to be said. People faked so much. He presumed it was a way to feel good about themselves. Maybe that's why they couldn't stand it when I told them the truth. They made up stories to fit their emotions and feel good about a situation, but he often saw through their lies. Unknowingly and unwillingly, he learned to observe the meaning of their facial expressions, allowing him to understand them better than they understood themselves. Since they didn't want to face reality, they didn't like it when he pointed out the truth. He wanted to make them understand what he saw, but they never did. His ability to discern their desires and motivations sometimes allowed him to take advantage of them, and why shouldn't he use them from time to time? He knew it was wrong, but could help himself from thinking. It's not like they ever understood it. Everything they did, he could do better if he just learned, by acquiring the basic foundations and observing the structures. Even so, they tried to make him feel as though it was he who was stupid for not wanting to play their game, their emotional game of violence. During his childhood, everyone had tried to push him to be or do something. When he finally got the chance, he left and pushed them all away. It was all too painful to think about. He stood up to shake off the memories that were haunting him. She moved to his side, but he hummed in response, indicating he wasn't ready to talk yet. His brain felt worn out. He just wanted to be with her and experience the soothing feeling of her presence. Eventually, they returned to the ground without speaking, resting together in silence. As they lay on the cold ground, their eyes fixed on the night sky, he opened up to her about some of the violence he had endured, the ruthless interactions he had been forced to participate in. She listened without uttering a word, gently stroking his hand. But as the memories grew too intense, he sat up, leaving the chilly ground behind. As he rose, he remembered all the times he had picked himself up after a fight, the aching pain in his body, the blood running down his nose, the cuts and bruises. Despite the contempt and ridicule he had faced, he always felt a sense of relief. The moment of pain was over. Other painful moments would come, but this one had ended. Whether he had won the fight or not, the feeling of relief would come creeping up on him. Curled up under the starlit sky, he gazed out at the glade before him, the treetops swaying black against the dark sky. The cold air rushing through his nose gave him a brisk feeling, and he continued to speak. It all felt so meaningless. If I fought back, they would only hurt me even worse. If I didn't retaliate, they would ease down for a while, but soon came back to hurt me. I tried to scare them, but nothing ever worked. It wasn't just the physical violence. It was the mental teasing and mind games. Despicable things. No one ever made it stop, even if they knew what was happening. I was just a kid, but I had to play their game. No one ever gave me an alternative. In my mind, I knew there had to be another way. As he spoke, she heard his voice tremble. With a sympathetic tone, she responded, "Even as a child, you knew that violence was a waste of time. You were smarter than them. For them, it was all about acting on their emotions in the moment. They couldn't see beyond the situation the way you could. I think the worst part wasn't necessarily what they said or did to you, but rather what the community didn't say or do. The feeling that they knew what was going on but made no effort to stop it. Each time that happened, you felt like it was your fault, even though you knew it wasn't. Why didn't anyone try to change it? Why did they let us suffer? How could they just close their eyes?" She heard a trace of bitterness and strain in his voice as he replied, "They all blended into one person, creating a common perspective. All those who promised to take care of and protect you, who never did. Even worse, those who pretended to care but left you all the same. Their hypocritical joy and hopefulness only felt like a mockery. How could you put your faith in them when their attempts and systems were constantly failing? Could they not see it themselves? How could you not blame yourself when no one seemed capable of helping? They asked you to open up and share your feelings. But for what? To judge you? They never did anything. You went through the process of sharing, but no one was listening or understanding. The next time you didn't want to talk about it, they blamed you for not opening up. Then it's your fault. But they didn't help the other time, so why should you place your faith in them now? When I was young, she said, they taught me to shut up. I learned how to listen until I could leave their judgment behind me. The loneliness haunted her as she grew up, always wondering why nobody would listen, even though she now understood why. Their eyes meet for just a moment before she continued. People may try to understand, but when showing compassion requires too much mental energy, they will start to moralize. After a certain amount of time, which depends on the person's understanding and ability to process information, they expect you to have solved the problem yourself with the help they're offering. Otherwise, they blame you. They won't admit that they don't get it. They are so used to having their perspective confirmed by others that they don't question it. They don't know how it feels to have no one to rely on. According to their perception, they have done everything right. There could be nothing more to expect from them. The more complex the problem or problems, the more you have to bear the burden alone. You had to learn to take care of your well-being without being dependent on anyone else to have given it to you. According to contract law, it becomes considered a contract if two parties act recurrently, seemingly agree to the contract, even unspoken. When suffering through all the violence with no one interfering, they agree to it. It's part of the social contract. For a long time, you cannot change your painful situation. People will act like it's your fault. They will act like you're actually that annoying that you don't try hard enough, deserving to be treated that way. In the end, you are alone. It's easier to blame yourself. At least then you have some sort of control. At least you can adjust your own behavior. He recognized himself in what she told him. This was a standard treatment for him growing up. It was rare that someone would genuinely acknowledge the horror they put him through. Instead, they usually ended up blaming his behavior and what he felt. As he felt her head on his shoulder, the act still sounded unsavory when he talked about them. Even so, they were easier to tell. She had a sensitive nature, and she didn't fit into their world of playing rough and being aggressive. She would often sit alone, observing the world around her, wondering why she couldn't be like the other kids. The abuse and mistreatment only reinforced her belief that she didn't belong, that she was a burden, and that she would never be accepted. The conversation triggered memories and emotions from a little girl. The trees in front of them reminded her of the forest, which she used to explore almost every day as a child. She felt like a girl who never really belonged. She recalled countless attempts to explain her situation and seek help, but no one seemed to understand or take action to change things. No one explained to her or others what was happening or held the abusers accountable. No one helped her leave and grow. Instead, she felt torn down. When they told her to be friendly and back down, she thought, yeah, like that would help. She knew how to be kind, but others didn't. They played games to make her act differently, twisting her words and ignoring her feelings. As they sat there, she placed her hand softly on his, and he shared something that had been on his mind for a long time. One of the most stressful and awful forms of violence is the not knowing. It's the looks and feelings communicated through body language but never explained by words. It's the lurking presence trying to get at you in some way. Passive aggressiveness. You know that eyes are watching. You know that there is disdain towards you, but you don't know in what way it will show itself. It could be yelling, disrespect, or physical violence. The fact that others don't take responsibility for their emotions makes them unpredictably dangerous. This happens at home, in relationships, or in school. It's like being watched by a predator, not knowing whether it will try and kill you or let you live. Yet the one targeting you pretends like they didn't do anything. They put you through all that stress and horror and then pretend that you're the one who's insane, imagining things. It was like this everywhere I fucking went. I was scared all of my life, except for the moments alone in my head. In there, no one could hurt me. Drugs, everything was a way to feel calm and to find some joy in the lack of calmness I was able to feel with others. They only stressed me out. They judged me for being too clever or too harsh. They always tried to tell me how I felt and what was right. One of the saddest things is that they assumed I would be happy if I were just like them, that we were the same. They couldn't understand that for some people, their normal life will never be equal to happiness. Their way of lashing out made me feel like they were all kids, and I had to calm them down. I guess they were. He thought about how he would often feel as if he had to dumb down everything he wanted to tell them, to break through the barrier of their emotional resistance towards what he had to say. Did you know that when exposed to psychological violence, our brain reacts similarly as when exposed to physical violence? She nodded. The abuser knows they are in control by refusing to admit or take responsibility for their feelings and actions, leaving you with a stressful feeling. As long as they refuse to communicate, you don't know what danger to expect. It becomes hard to leave because of what might happen. They have control over you. As he spoke, he remembered how liberating he felt the first time living alone, not fully understanding why at that point. For some people, this behavior follows them their whole life. They keep someone calm, never being able to leave because of the violence they would suffer. Their emotions are not being heard or understood. It's like they become used to holding themselves back, being under control, being the ones left with all the blame. No one would understand because nothing is happening, right? But we are still animals. We still feel these things. The emotional programming and adjusting to violence make it so hard to leave. If you have no good relations, you only know how to react to bad ones. You don't know how to react when treated well, so used to always being on your watch. He felt unburdened to say it aloud. He thought about how glad he was to have left that part of life behind, finally free, finally able to make his own changes, not bound to their restrictions or limited by their imagination, a limitation he would later experience living with his previous wife as well. Sitting next to each other in the grass, tucked under the wool blanket, they looked into the night. It was cold and dark, like the memories they shared. With a gentle touch, she laid her head on his shoulder, gazing into his field of vision. They shared the experience and relived different memories, sharing the pain. She hadn't said a word for a while, but he knew she had been listening as he spoke. He could tell by glimpsing at her. Her countenance showed profound focus, processing what he said, connecting the information. He felt his heart beating faster as he continued with a low voice. I always wish to find a way to protect others from being hurt like that again, to find a way to keep them from feeling lonely and abandoned. I guess you know what I mean. I especially want to protect my kids. My whole life, my family wondered why I never behaved as they did. Every time I tried expressing how I felt or what I had learned, their response would be to judge and criticize. Each time I decided to keep more and more to myself, I tried to explain in so many different ways, places, timing, and all of it. Yet all they left me with was a stupid look on their faces or some unconsidered and hurtful comment. Some things just make you feel like you are dying when thinking about it, he thought before he continued. Even so, I am not someone who gives up. I made sure to beat them when playing the game they asked me to play. I got it all: family, house, education, job, better than anyone could imagine. Yet, it still feels as if nobody shares any joy over my achievement, only some form of envy or once again stupid looks and faceless comments. It wasn't the words in the comments that hurt me, but the lack of interest and the lack of knowing me. How hard I fought to get anywhere. It was all a surprise to them that I got this far. They lacked the knowledge of all that I am capable of, waiting for me to fail. No one ever believed anything about me. Even when he was young, he knew he did not belong with them. He felt betrayed, thinking, no one ever gave me the feeling that I might belong somewhere else. He placed his elbow on his knees, his head sinking into his hands. All the anger he had felt for so long seemed to come crawling back. My family could not possibly think anything of me. It is still the case that they never care enough to get to know me or listen, no matter what I do. There is no longer anyone's opinion that I would actually care about, who could talk shitty about my actions. Those I care about know me and try to understand my intentions and help me when I am wrong. Thinking about his childhood and family filled him with anger and guilt. These thoughts had been eating him up for a long time, and he wished he could feel differently. As a kid, he had tried to love his family, but it only left him feeling taken advantage of. Fucking cunts, he thought to himself, swearing in his head. Luckily, few of the words ever left his mouth, only among those who knew him. From time to time, he thought his family had felt love for him, but it could never stay that way if he acted like himself. This was not the kind of love he longed for. After all these years, he had come to terms with the fact that their relationship was this way, and he could not expect more from them. His can-do spirit and grit had kept him striving all these years, especially when he knew he was right. Each person who gave him a piece of understanding would enhance his spirit. He searched for motivation in every way he could to keep going, no matter how hard things used to be. The more he learned, the more he became a better person through education, friends, colleges, and most of all, his kids. They made him see himself, both good and bad, and he understood his behavior by thinking about how they saw him. Having them in his life urged his will to create a better future. She sat next to him in silence, taking in his words and feeling her own pain reflected in them. After a moment of quiet contemplation, she spoke. I understand that you wish your abusers could comprehend the magnitude of the pain they inflicted upon you. Perhaps you believe that their acknowledgement of their wrongdoing would bring you some sense of closure. Somehow you might think it would make you feel better to have them suffer from knowing how much they've hurt you. This is why many victims of abuse seek revenge rather than understanding. Empathy requires a level of cognitive effort that not everyone is capable of. And it also involves wanting to step outside of your own perspective to consider that of another. It's important to remember that some people simply cannot understand the perspectives of others, much like a predator cannot feel remorse for its prey. Predators act on instinct and survival, and in the same way, some people are unable to control their emotions and lash out without consideration for others. It's not necessarily that they wish to cause harm, but rather that they lack the ability to communicate effectively and manage their emotions. An animal feels that an act is the right thing to do, and it is since it has to do so in order to survive. People do the same thing, just acting out their emotions. In order to move forward and heal from the pain inflicted upon you, you must view your abusers as creatures of instinct rather than complex human beings. This can allow you to detach emotionally and view them as neutral objects rather than sources of pain and anger. It's important to understand that not everyone is capable of rational thinking or empathy, and it's not your responsibility to make them understand. Your focus should be on finding ways to heal and move forward from the iniquity you have experienced. She paused, reflecting on her own thoughts. I know that some may view this perspective as harsh or even cruel, but it's a necessary step in the healing process. It's important to a reality of the situation and find ways to cope and heal, even if it means letting go of the hope for understanding or remorse from those who hurt us. She continued, speaking with a neutral tone in her voice. From what you've told me, you've been exposed to violence. No matter what you say or how you feel now, they still wounded you when you were young. It left you with a damaged way of thinking about yourself and cooperating with others. You've always been on guard, trying to prevent more violence without fully understanding it yourself, all because of how you were treated. You longed to feel in control since you never had love. He felt distressed as she mentioned his longing for control. I can see that you've learned a new way, reprogrammed your brain by understanding a better way of thinking. Still, violence is a part of you, an experience that you cannot remove or forget. It is a part of your physical memory and sometimes uncontrollable when you react in relation to other people. What she said was true. He sometimes found himself holding back impulses to say things and to think thoughts connected to his previous experiences, trying to protect himself in different ways. Their voices grew louder and more lively as he spoke. "It's true," he said. "Humans under stress tend to remember angry faces and interpret the world as a dangerous place. For those of us who have experienced prolonged stress, that feeling stays with us and can be easily triggered, I guess. Fear can make you feel like you're in a different world, one that you can't escape, full of violence that you must protect yourself from. It's connected to our instinct to withdraw when exposed to stress. Living with stress for too long can cause us to avoid contact with others as a means of self-protection. When we feel calm, however, we're free to explore the world because we have the energy to survive potential downfall." She nodded in agreement, thinking back to all the times when fear had held her paralyzed, making it impossible for her to pursue her dreams. "Yes," she said, "and also to have people who can help us if we are ever in danger or hurt. Without the feeling of protection from others, it's hard to dare." His words reminded her of all the times she had felt haunted by the looks and actions of others, and how her fear had made her self-centered, thinking everyone was out to get her. Every day she made a conscious effort to remind herself and her children that this wasn't the case, that most people cared for them, and that arguments and conflicts were a natural part of life. She reminded them that all was well, that they were loved, and that their goodness and sufficiency should be valued. His eyes showed signs of a defeatist mood. Sitting next to him, she rested her head on his shoulder and spoke softly. "Nowadays, more people get to grow up in peace, and fewer are neglected, at least where we live. Those who do get hurt may still suffer, but many have parents who support them and make them feel safe. You had none of that, just yourself. It's no wonder you have trouble trusting others. Your perception of the world was limited by the behavior of those around you, by their animalistic behavior. That's also why they treated you the way they did. They couldn't understand your feelings based on the threats you experienced, so they judged and punished your behavior instead of trying to understand it." She found comfort in reading about the safety and joy that others experienced in their lives, even though she was unable to change her own past. They noticed something moving in the glade, almost impossible to hear. She found herself drawn even closer to him, and he wrapped his arm around her. Normally, she felt uncomfortable being close to anyone other than her children, but with him, her oxytocin levels would skyrocket, making her feel safe enough to speak. She noticed that his voice had a higher pitch and sounded strained as he responded, "It's hard to think about what they did to us. They took away something almost as important as oxygen to our bodies. That's how crucial relationships are to our survival. Without others, we fucking die. They beat us down and stressed us out, making it even harder for us to connect with others, all for their own amusement and lack of self-control. They made us look bad because they couldn't understand us, projecting their narrow perspectives onto others with spiteful words. We survived, but they made it a struggle for us to do so. It's no wonder some of us died. Loneliness, lack of understanding, and a lack of safety are all deadly diseases. Yet those who infected us with these diseases are bullies. They laugh at others' pain and suicide, so used to violence and its culture. They're incapable of visualizing another type of connection built on love and trust, masking their intellectual insecurity with violence. They're unable to gain influence by using language and sharing knowledge, and they're not able to keep others calm, only stressing them out. Instead of showing compassion, they only judge and ridicule, trying to control others." As he spoke, many faces came to mind, people he had met over the years, and they filled him with reluctance. She sat up straight and responded with a blank expression, her eyes lost in the forest. "You're right, but there's no use in blaming them. They couldn't change their behavior any more than we could. That's just it. They didn't have the knowledge or cognitive thinking, mere animals. Violence becomes deeply embedded in many childhoods, leaving seemingly no alternative way to act. We all strive to make the best of what we're given, and those who sincerely wanted to help did so with genuine intentions, but couldn't find a way to do so. Finally, we're able to leave most of them who hurt us behind and let them and their way of living be dead to us now. You've lived among the darkest of human existence, In time, this behavior will be consumed by the new world, since they cannot comprehend all the complicated structures that build it. In time, they will lose power. The more I rid myself of people who judge, the freer I became to live my life as I wanted and explore the boundaries of my imagination. Nowadays, I can bring my own meaning to my existence. I never want to lose hope. If I can't change something, I'll do my best to accept what was and is. It's important to talk about the past, but I won't dwell on my thoughts of how things should have been or how I wanted them to be. None of that matters now. I don't know, and I can't know. People tend to decide others' futures based on their past, but we're all capable of making new choices. If we allow ourselves to learn from our past knowledge and allow ourselves and others to be good, we can free ourselves from our differences and keep trying to connect with others. She had been caught in her misery at times, trying to figure it all out. He replied, giving her a thoughtful look. I guess you're right, but what does it mean for us? That we can't expect more from them? Everyone always does their best in every situation, even though some act awful and without regret. We're all beings, limited by the preconditions we were born and grew up with, all leading to a given situation. No human can possibly understand all of it. Are we all to only try and respect each other's decisions and take responsibility for our own? These thoughts had also occurred to him before, but he'd never connected them in this context. She responded with determination evident in her eyes and voice. Humans will always hurt each other. We are different, and as a result, there are misunderstandings when we communicate. When we were young, they separated us because we were different. Moralizing about different behavior was necessary to keep humans together as a group. They needed to have a shared understanding of good behavior to feel good and appear eminent to themselves. We are obligated to find new ways of communicating and to acquire knowledge that will help us better understand each other. For those who refuse or are unable to understand or accept responsibility, we must see them as the animals they are. Find ways to neutrally identify and understand why an act is violent and its effect on the other person. We must find ways to prevent them from hurting others, while still connecting with them. We don't have the cognitive resources to fully understand history or foresee the future and prevent us from being hurt again. We can only learn what is important to us, makes us feel good, and focus on increasing that part of our lives. In human evolution, the psychopath's behavior, lacking empathy, was beneficial. It allowed some to act violently and protect the group from outsider danger and horror. Instead of judging people's behavior, we should understand the intentions behind their actions. What is their intent when doing what they do? What led them to do it? How do they function? She had found it hard to accept this conclusion. He looked skeptical as she continued. There is no way to stop people from hurting others by trying to scare them or retaliate. Only using knowledge can help us. This is true for all conflicts. This is the only way to reduce violence in the world, the only way to end wars. Violence only begets more violence. It increases exponentially. We can make things better by understanding what is happening and taking responsibility. We should not dwell on the past, thinking about what should have been, or asking people to be what they are incapable of being. If they are unable to understand, we must understand them as the animals they are and find ways to prevent them from hurting others. It also means that we must take responsibility and forgive ourselves for all our mistakes on our way to becoming better people. We all do our best. It was a liberating thought to let go of all the horror, leaving it in the past and letting all of their new memories take its place. A bright red light in the sky signaled the arrival of morning. Although the blankets had kept them warm, they both longed for the cozy comfort of the indoors. He stood up and offered her his hand to help her rise. With a tired expression and a humble smile on his face, he spoke softly. Let's leave these memories here and find our way home. She nodded in agreement and took his hand. Both of them were too exhausted to utter another word. As he listened to the story being told aloud, it broke his heart, but it also brought a sense of understanding. He was able to better comprehend his emotions. At some point, it no longer felt as painful or difficult to deal with. It was simply something he had experienced a long time ago, a tale once told and long ago forgotten.